Hi, this is Victor Antonio with another sales presentation tip. Many years ago, we lived in Latin America, Argentina, Buenos Aires to be specific. I was vice president of all of Latin America, and our main office was there. And I remember in that region, in that country, and in that city, we had one large customer who we just could not penetrate. You know what I'm talking about, that one white elephant you just can't get. And so one day I remember hiring a salesperson. I told the salesperson, what I'd like you to do is focus in on that one customer, just that one customer. I want you to work your way up the food chain, so to speak, till you find the right person that makes all the decisions. Now, once you do that, I want you to set up a meeting. I want to meet the person. So sure enough, about 2 months later, yes, about 2 months later, the customer was that big. Now, I should mention at this point before I forget that the annual sales for that customer was about $300,000 a year. Really small compared to how big that company was. So again, 2 months later, the meeting is set up, we go in there. And if you can imagine, there's the guy sitting, right? Mahogany table, beautiful bay windows looking out to the bay, just really intimidating, right? Salesman and I walk in, I introduce myself. Now, we were given 30 minutes. Now, secret, when somebody gives me 30 minutes, I always use up less. And I knew I would need about maybe 15 minutes for what I wanted to say. So sure enough, we sit down, we begin chatting. In the first 10 minutes, I basically told him who we were, what we offer, why we were in the region, and why we were there meeting with him. At about the 10-minute mark, I thanked him for his time. He was kind of stunned, like, that's it, 10 minutes? And I remember he had this surprised look. I said, but before I leave, I brought in the box with me. I said, but before I leave, I brought you a gift. So I pulled out the long box, handed it to him, looked at it curiously enough, finally opened it up, and he pulled out what was a golf putter that I had brought him as a gift. At the head of the club was actually his initials engraved down there, right? And so sure enough, he opens this and he's looking at this club and he's like, has this big smile on his face because I knew before going in there that this guy was a golf fanatic. Now he had this big smile on his face, it just broke the ice. You had to be there, just broke the ice. And then I did something unusual again. I reached into my pocket, I pulled out a sleeve of golf balls. And each golf ball, of course, had our company logo, branded on there. And so I remember I opened the box, I pulled out one ball, grabbed the cup from the table, and then walked over to the other side of the conference room. I put the glass on the floor, came right back to him, I handed him the golf ball, and I said, I'll tell you what. I said, if you can make that putt, it's about a 20-foot putt. I said, it's about a 20-foot putt. If you can make that putt, I will buy you lunch next time we meet. But if you miss, you have to buy me lunch. I remember he smiled at me, just kind of looked at the cup, looking at the distance, he kind of said, no, Victor, he has me the puddle. He said, why don't you putt, with a smile on his face, and if you get it in, I'll pay for lunch, but if you miss, you have to pay. I said, sure enough, I'll do it. So I remember grabbing the club, lined that sucker up, and missed it, just right off the lip of the glass. I wound up paying for the next lunch, which I had no problem with. Now, I stopped the story there, because from that day on, I could call that guy up anytime I wanted. The story had spread through the company of what had happened and what I had just done. You have to understand, this was one of the most serious individuals in that company, and everybody heard about the putter incident. And from that day on, they knew who we were. We got in there, we had more accessibility, but again, we stood out from the rest. Now, we took our sales from $300,000 to almost $3 million in about 2.5 years. Did it have anything to do with the putter? Absolutely not. It had everything to do with gaining access. Once we gained access, we proved who we were, we started getting demos in there, field trials, and the work proceeded till we finally started getting their business. But that aside, I also know that just that incident, I'll call it the putter incident, helped a little bit in terms of greasing the skids for them to get to know who we were and why we were there and how we were going to serve them. So here's my question to you is, when you meet with your customers, are you doing something unexpected? Are you making them feel special? Or are you doing something that's very personal when you're doing the presentation? Keep this in mind. I think it'll help. This is Victor Antonio with another presentation sales tip reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.